Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Game Master Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video I'm making my return to the Game Master's tools of ShadowDark RPG, and I'm going to be focusing on random encounters, traps, and hazards. So, if you've been following along with my multi-video coverage of this, I'm going to put it right out there. This is a phenomenal game system, and I strongly encourage you to give it a try at any opportunity that you have. If you're not, in fact, going to go out there and pick it up yourself, you can get a free starters rules on Arcane Library's website, so you can certainly give it a test drive to see how it works, for you and with your gaming group. But again, I strongly recommend that you pick this one up because it is just such a rock solid game system. So easy to pick up, so easy to run, a lot of fun to play, and without further ado, I'm going to jump right into this next episode of Game Master's Tools. And so here we go. So random encounters, the purpose, random encounters are a way to keep time pressure up. If the characters linger too long, they'll run the risk of more encounters. How often? The GM checks for random encounters during crawling rounds, not combat, based on the environment's danger level. Unsafe, check every 3 rounds. Risky, check every 2 rounds. Deadly, check every round. To check for a random encounter, the GM rolls a d6 and an encounter occurs on the result of a 1. The GM might also check for the encounter if the characters create a loud disturbance. For overland travel, check for random encounters based on hours in place of rounds. See page 90 for overall travel details. Starting distance. If one or more wandering creatures appear, roll a d6 for their distance from the group. They can be either close, which is kind of rare, near, 2 to 4, which is more than average, and far, 5 or 6. What is it doing? When the characters encounter new creatures, roll to determine the creature's current activity. This might impact how likely they are to notice the characters. This is something unique that I haven't seen before, and I really like it. It really does. It's not something that we often think about. We often just go right to, well, what is the morale check of the creature? What is the purpose of the creature? Is it hostile? Is it neutral? Or is it friendly? Here, it actually fleshes out what was it doing in that moment. Reaction check. When the characters encounter random creatures, the GM rolls for a creature's attitude if it would not already be clear. All right, and that's a very important point to make. I mean, you don't have to make this roll for a creature who is obviously going to be hostile. You're going to make this roll when there's some possibility that it's not automatically hostile. If the characters immediately interact with the creatures to influence their attitude, one of the interacting characters may add their charisma modifier to the reaction check. The interacting characters reveal their presence and position to the creatures. Some vicious creatures, such as undead, are always hostile, right? So they reiterate that point. You're going to roll 2d6 plus the charisma modifier. The rolls will either be hostile on a 0 to 6, fairly low roll, suspicious on a 7 or 8, 9 completely neutral, 10 to 11 curious, and a 12 plus friendly. Treasure. There's a 50% chance a randomly encountered creature or group of creatures has no treasure. That means there's a 50% chance that they do have treasure. And then you would go to the the appropriate treasure chart to see how much treasure they're actually carrying. Traps. Traps add peril and surprise to crawling. Characters typically get to make a relevant stat check to avoid a trap's effects. A tell. Most traps should have a hint or tells. Be careful not to make traps too frequent or the game pace will suffer. Finding. Characters who search a specific area or object for a trap automatically find it. Disabling. Thieves and characters who are trained in tinkering can describe how they disabled or circumvent a trap. If the character has enough time and uses a reasonable method, the character succeeds. All right, so it's not necessarily an automatic success, even though it kind of reads that way. If the character has enough time and uses a reasonable method, that means that they have to describe, and we get back into here, they can describe how they're disabling the trap. You know, if they say something that is not a reasonable description of their method, then you could still have the trap triggered. If there is time, pressure, or the trap required a great deal of skill to deactivate, the GM might call for a stat check. And that's what you could do in that case. If their description doesn't really match, then you can give them a backup. Well, you have to roll, but with a disadvantage to disarm the trap. Types of traps. So I like this here. It tells you basically the type, the trigger, and the damage or effect. And you can see here they run the full gambit here, from fairly simple traps of firing a crossbow bolt activated by a tripwire to spells. All right, a cursed statue casting a spell would do 3d10 petrify. That's a pretty strong trap. If I was being really devious, I would have the trap being triggered also set off an alarm, and that way the creatures could swarm in expecting to find 3d10 petrified individuals. All right. Hazards. Hazards add a passive danger to the adventuring environment. There is often no way to defeat or permanently disable them. Unlike traps, hazards are obvious from the start. Movement restriction. Some hazards inhibit or prevent movement, such as quicksand, pools of slippery ice. Hazards can even fully entrap characters. Damage. Some hazards deal ongoing damage, such as toxic spores or acid rain. Weakening. Certain hazards weaken or hamper the characters. These could include anti-magic zones or vapors that sap physical strength. Combining. The most insidious hazards combine one or more of these types into a single threat. So you have quicksand. Quicksand does damage like acid pools. I don't know, that's kind of weird. Weaken, blinding smoke. Oh, I'm just seeing. Let's see. Again, I'm looking at this for the first time. Caltrops, exploding rocks, magnetic field. All right, so they're the movement. I guess you roll on 3 different charts, or so quicksand. I don't know how this chart works, like what you're supposed to do with this. So, oh, I see. This is now I got it. So if you're determining the hazard that you want to do, right? So I can have a movement hazard of quicksand. I can choose a different type of hazard that would be like pummeling hail. So you have three different categories of hazards: movement hazards, damage hazards, and weakened hazards. And then you roll a d12 to determine which type of hazard is actually being encountered in there. Got it now. And we get to the gauntlet. Now, these next two pages are not really part of what I was going to cover, but they don't fit into their own category either. So I'm just going to include these here. The gauntlet is basically the roll up 4 level characters, very much like from Dungeon Crawl Classics, and you have all of your players create these 4 0 level characters, and whichever ones actually survive will become their first level character that they continue adventuring with. And then awarding XP. So awarding XP, characters gain XP from the valuable treasures and boons they earn during the adventure. XP doesn't need to reflect monetary value. Boons or fabled items have an intangible worth. Treasure has 4 categories: poor, 0 XP, normal, 1 XP, fabulous, 3 XP, and legendary, 10 XP. Each PC gets the full XP value of each treasure. When the PCs gain a new level, their XP resets to 0. Sources of XP is gold and gems, oaths, secrets and blessings, magic items, meaningful trophies and tokens. Clever thinking, award 1 XP for ingenious action. How much gold? Over time, PCs will earn and lose gold through the adventuring, carousing, and buying gear. Per treasure find, each group should gain about 10 gold pieces and their average party level in value, or 20 gold pieces for levels 0 through 3, 50 gold pieces in value levels 4 through 6, and 80 gold pieces in value for levels 7 through 9. XP for treasure quality, you have, again, poor is a bag of silver, a used dagger, knucklebone dice. Normal is a bag of gold or gem, fine armor, magic scroll. Fabulous, magic sword, giant diamond, mithril chainmail. And legendary, the staff of Ord, the Jinn or Genie's wish, and a dragon horde. All right, and I will leave it at that there. So there you have it, the Game Master's tools for random encounters, traps, and hazards. And, like I said, I mean, this is a really, really great system to both run and play in. And so simple to pick up. And despite my challenge of figuring out how the hazards chart worked, you could see it took me just a couple of moments to actually figure out what it was doing with the categories of hazards. But again, something that is fairly easy to pick up if you just think about it a little bit and sort through the possibilities of what that chart actually meant. So as always, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't subscribed, please consider liking and subscribing, and leaving your comments in the comments section. And you all have a great rest of your weekend. And take care. Thank you.